All right, there we go. Clear that notification. Okay. So starting in our comfortable seated position, and we'll start today with just an easy scan of the body. So starting from the top of the head and moving to the tips of the toes. As you take that scan, all you're doing today is noticing without any judgment what's going on in your body, where those points of tension are, where those spaces that are a little bit extra sore or tired are, and also those spaces that maybe feel particularly good today. Maybe you got some movement in earlier and you can already tell what's going on, what's feeling a little bit better this morning. As you take that scan, sending each of those exhales to those points of tension, adding a little bit of extra relaxation. So maybe it's the muscles in the face or the muscles in the jaw, and just allowing them to release and relax, allowing your tongue to come away from the roof of your mouth, your shoulders to relax away from the ears. Although we maintain good posture, letting the muscles in the core just slightly relax and release. Shoulder blades relax and release. Maybe your eyes can gently close from down towards the floor. Traveling down into the legs, allowing the muscles in the upper leg to relax and release the lower leg. And maybe we wiggle the fingers and toes just to allow them a little bit of extra space and then a little bit of extra relaxation. As you complete that scan and you take notice of where those points of tension are, I invite you to start our practice today with any initial range of motion or stretch that you know feels particularly good for you. So maybe you found a little bit of tension through the spine. So a spinal twist will feel really good to start with. Maybe a lateral stretch will feel good. Maybe you know the lower body's a little tense, so you find an easy forward fold. Just choosing a stretch, choosing a range of motion that you know will feel particularly good for you this morning. And we'll take about 4 nice deep breaths in that initial stretch and that initial range of motion. And just 2 more nice deep breaths here. As you complete that last nice deep breath, just coming back to center, coming back to your nice long spine. And we're going to go with a roll of the head and the neck up next. So that next big inhale finds that super long spine. Exhale drops the chin to the chest, opening up through the back of the neck. From here, we're just going to roll the head nice and easy, side to side, right ear towards that right shoulder. And you can reach that left hand down towards the mat for a little bit more length if that feels good. And then our exhale drops the chin to the chest and left ear to left shoulder. And same thing, you can reach that right hand down if that feels good. From here, just move it a couple of times at your own pace, side to side. Those exhales drop you through center. Those inhales move you side to side. Just a couple nice, easy stretches for the neck. Maybe you feel this down into the shoulder a little bit. And if you're moving a little bit faster or slower than me, that's completely fine. Moving at your own pace in this practice, especially in these warm-up ranges. And let's take 2 more nice deep breaths here. That following exhale drops that chin back to the chest. And then that inhale lifts the head back up nice and long. We're just going to go into some nice, easy shoulder circles next. So pulling the shoulders up towards the ears and then down and back, a couple of nice circles. We've got a little bit of work in our downward facing dog today. So just getting the shoulders warmed up and ready to go, releasing a little bit of tension there. I hold a lot of my tension in my shoulders. This is always one that I like to start with. Let's take 1 more circle in this first direction, and then we'll change it up. So I was going backwards. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring it forwards. And 1 more circle in that second direction. When you finish that last circle, relaxing those shoulders nice and low away from the ears, we're going to go side to side in our lateral stretches next. Your next inhale brings those arms out and up towards the ceiling. I want you to pause when you get to the top for just a moment. Find that nice big stretch long way from center, like you just woke up and you're trying to stretch yourself out of bed. Nice big inhale, looking up towards those fingertips if that feels okay on the neck. With your next exhale, you go ahead and take that right hand, bring it down to the mat, and that left arm is really going to reach up and over towards the ceiling, towards that opposite corner of the room, and that left hip is planted on the ground, so nice length from fingertips to hip. Inhale pushes us up through center. Same thing, little stretch at the top. Exhale, second side. So planting that left hand, reaching with that right, up and over, nice big stretch. And we're going to go one more time in each direction. Inhale pulls us up through center. Exhale down to that first side. Nice big reach there. And one more time in that second direction. Your next inhale pulls you up to center. And exhale, second side. Next inhale brings you back up to center. I'm going to go right into our spinal twist. I'm going to go ahead and bring that left arm forward and that right arm backwards. Left arm's going to go to the outside of that right knee. Right hand's going to come down to the mat, opening those shoulders towards that side wall in that nice spinal twist. A little more pressure on those hands. It's going to add a little bit more intensity here. A little less pressure in case that doesn't feel very good. With that inhale, we're going to come up through center and switch sides. So inhale brings us up. Exhale, second side. And same as those lateral stretches, we're just going to go one more time in each direction. Inhale brings us up. Exhale back to that first side. And one more time, inhale through center. Exhale, second side. Last inhale brings us up nice and long, one final time, and then exhale just releases those arms down and around. I'm just going to turn sideways so I'm facing the short edge of my mat, but all we're going to make an adjustment for here is those legs. So I'm going to just bend the knees and plant the feet, and we're going to do just a little seated cat and cow, a little seated spinal range of motion. So I'm going to go ahead and plant my hands right behind my hips, open up through the chest, press the belly forward, press the spine forward, and I'm just going to let my head come back to neutral. If it feels okay, you can let the chin kind of come up towards the ceiling. That's a little intense for me this morning. I'm going to keep my head long and just press it backwards slightly. From here, as we exhale, we're going to walk those hands forward. I'm going to take mine just towards my heels, open up through the spine towards that back wall, and tuck the chin in towards the chest. So kind of like a seated version of our cat and cow. Go ahead a couple times in each direction with your breath. Those inhales, pulling the hands behind, opening through the chest. And exhales, rounding the spine out, walking those fingertips towards the heels. And let's take one more nice deep breath here. And then just kind of releasing, coming back up to center. Then I'm going to take my legs out nice and long. I'm going to start with single side for this fold. So taking my left leg, putting the sole of that foot just towards that inner right thigh. Starting with an inhale to take the arms up and find that nice long spine. And then our exhale is just going to hinge forward at those hips. When you hit the edge of your range of motion, you can stay right there, or you can round and relax and release into that stretch to bring those fingertips down towards the toes, the ankle, or the shin, depending on where you're at today. And just finding a couple of nice deep breaths in this fold. One more breath here. And then that next inhale brings us back up, nice long spine. All right, we're gonna take it down the center by bringing the soles of those feet together. So just bringing the sole of that right foot in to meet the left. And I'm just gonna place my hands on my ankles and kind of hinge forward at those hips with that long spine. If there's a version of this that feels a little bit better for you, maybe reaching those hands out, maybe just sitting up tall, maybe placing those elbows onto the insides of those knees, feel free to find it. But just finding that nice butterfly stretch with the soles of those feet together. If you pull the heels in a little bit closer to you, it might be a little bit more intense. Or if you need a little bit less intensity, just allowing those heels to release a little bit further away from the body. Couple nice deep breaths here. And same as with that initial scan of the body, as we find our exhales in our nice deep breaths in our poses, trying to find that little bit of extra release and relaxation into these stretches. So coming just a tiny bit deeper into each stretch with each exhale. And one more nice deep breath here. And then that inhale is going to bring us back up to seated. And we're just going to switch to that other leg. So that left leg's going to come out long. The sole of that right foot comes towards that inner left thigh. We've got that inhale to that nice long spine, those nice long arms, that hinge with the hips to bring those fingertips down. And then when you hit the edge of that range of motion, you can keep it there or you can round and release into it, just depending on what type of stretch you'd like today. So rounding into it's going to give you a little bit more stretch for the lower back and the upper back. Keeping that long spine is going to give a little bit more of a stretch for the lower body, for the hamstrings. And one more nice deep breath here. Next inhale rolls us up to that nice long spine one more time. Then we've got one more stretch down the center. So you can kind of choose where your feet go for this one. If you really like that butterfly and that's something that you'd like to go back to, you can find that. If you'd like those legs to go straight out down the center because that feels good, they can find that. Or if you like them in a little bit of a straddle and that feels a little bit better, you can find that as well. We're going to find 2 times. So you can choose 2 of those if you'd like. First one, that inhale, once again, find that nice long spine, nice long arms, and we hinge at those hips, fingertips coming down. Again, you can keep that long spine or you can release and relax into it. One more nice deep breath here. That next inhale rolls you back up. You can take those arms up overhead if you're going right back into this stretch, or you can change that foot positioning if you'd like. Choose another one. And once again, final time here, right down the center, hinge it forward, find that stretch. And one more nice deep breath right down the center. That next inhale rolls us back up, and we're going to make our way over to hands and knees. So take your time, make the transition that works for you. I'm just going to circle those legs around and bring it on over to hands and knees. When I get there, I'm going to go right into that cat and cow. So finding those wrists either right under the shoulders, or if the wrists are a little bit tender today, maybe taking them out in front just slightly. The knees underneath those hips. And then with our inhale, we drop the belly towards the floor, lift the hips and the chin if that feels okay. And our exhale rounds the spine up towards the ceiling, tucks the chin in towards the chest, and those hips underneath. So a couple times here with the pace of your breath, just in that nice, easy cat and cow. And let's take one more nice deep breath here. When you finish that last nice deep breath, coming back to that nice neutral long spine, we're going to take a moment and make our way into our child's pose. So taking those knees nice and wide, those big toes close together, and those hips back towards the heels. When you press back into that child's pose, I want you to take just a moment right down the center and just find that nice big stretch for that lower back, for the chest, for the shoulders. Maybe let the forehead just gently release down to the mat. From here, let's go ahead, if it feels okay, and walk those hands over to the right side of that mat, finding just that nice little stretch through the left side of the body. If that doesn't feel good, you can keep it right down center. And if you found that right side, go ahead and walk it through center over to the left. Same thing if that doesn't feel good, you can keep it down center. And then from there, let's just go ahead and walk those hands right back to center, finding that child's pose, nice and easy. We're just going to do a little bit of a flow front to back from this child's pose. So to initiate that, I'm going to start by just lifting those hips and pulling my knees underneath my hips so I have a little bit of space to move. And then the hips are going to do most of the moving here. We're going to press back towards that kind of modified version of our child's pose, and then forward towards our cobra or baby cobra. Now, if that cobra is a little bit intense, maybe you just plant those elbows and find your sphinx or your baby cobra. If that cobra feels okay, you can keep those palms planted. And from here, just kind of moving at your own pace, front to back. So pressing those hips backwards, finding that nice stretch in that child's pose, and then pressing forwards to find that cobra, baby cobra, or sphinx. A couple times each direction, just moving with your breath. I like to exhale to press back and inhale to press forward. But if the opposite feels better for you, you can certainly do that as well. And we already paused in that child's pose. So let's pause in our cobra or our baby cobra. Next time you come forward, next time you press those hips down towards the mat, I want you to just take an extra couple of moments in that cobra, in that baby cobra, or in that sphinx, wherever feels best for you today. And just find that little bit of a hold in that stretch, that front side body stretch. Maybe you feel this a little bit like I do through the lower back. As always, pain-free ranges of motion in this class. It can be intense, but we don't want any pain. And from here, we're going to bring it right back up to hands and knees. So knees back underneath hips, wrists back underneath shoulders. And once again, if that's a little bit intense and you'd like to walk those hands out just slightly, that's certainly fine. We're going to do a little spinal twist, a little thread the needle, and then we'll hold down nice and low in that spinal twist. So we're going to start with those inhales and exhales. Our inhale is going to pull those right fingertips up and away from center towards the ceiling. And maybe you only come to that 45 degrees, that's fine. Maybe you can reach a little higher, that's also fine. Our exhale is going to pull us down and through. We're going to thread that right arm underneath in between that left hand and those knees. And that shoulder is going to come all the way or almost all the way down to the mat. And we're just going to move with our breath, kind of same as we did in that cobra, or same as we do in our cat and cow. Inhale extends us up nice and long. Exhale brings us down and through for that low spinal twist. So finding both of those directions just a couple times, and in a couple moments, we will find a hold down in our spinal twist. And let's find one more time from wherever you are, all the way up and back down. And when you bring it down, we're gonna pause nice and low in that spinal twist. So on this final time, that right shoulder can meet the mat, Maybe right ear meets the mat. And I like to release a little pressure on my left hand as I do this, maybe by extending the arm out long, or maybe if it feels okay for your elbow and your shoulder, finding your half bind by reaching those left fingertips up towards the ceiling. The palm faces behind the back, and then I just gently bend at the elbow to kind of aim those fingertips towards my right hip. If that doesn't feel good, if the shoulder is bothered by that, then feel free to keep that hand somewhere down on the mat that does feel okay. We've got 2 more nice deep breaths in this spinal twist. If you did find that half bind, I want you to go ahead and release that hand, bring it back to just kind of right above that right arm. We're going to find one more big inhale for that final lift, and then we'll set that right hand down. So inhale brings us back up, nice twist towards the ceiling. Exhale brings that right hand down to the mat. I'm just going to switch sides and do that same thing on our opposite side. So starting with that little flow, inhale, left arm lifts up towards the ceiling. Exhale brings us down and through almost all the way. So almost until that shoulder meets into that spinal twist. A couple times here. And again, just kind of timing it with your breath, finding that nice, easy flow. If you're moving a little faster or slower than me, that is fine. My breath always gets a little off in these classes because I talk so much. Sometimes I rely on you guys to set the pace. That's okay, because that's what this practice is for. And from wherever you are, we're just going to find one more time, one more big inhale to lift. And then our exhale is going to lower and release us down into that hold, into that spinal twist. So that left shoulder meets the mat, maybe that left ear meets the mat. And same couple of options with that right hand. You can kind of release the pressure by just reaching it out nice and long, or if you like that half bind, right fingertips reach up, palm faces behind the back, and then I bend at the elbow and I'm just aiming my fingertips towards my left hip crease. And this also just kind of serves to open those shoulders a little bit more towards that side wall and deepen our spinal twist up towards the shoulders. And 2 more nice deep breaths here. If you found that bind, go ahead and release it. Bring that hand back to that neutral. We've got one more nice inhale to lift that left. And then we're going to go ahead and set it down next to the right. From here, we're going to take just a few moments and stretch out the lower body a little bit before we go into our downward facing dog. And all we're going to do that is from this position, take that right foot back nice and long as if we were going to press into a plank. And we're just going to kind of find a nice easy front to back. So I'm pressing forward towards my toes, and then I'm pressing that heel back to just kind of find an easy calf stretch, an easy hamstring stretch. So just a little ease front and back. And I also can feel this through the bottom of my foot a little bit, especially in that front part of that range of motion with those toes curled under. And just to intensify this stretch a little bit, we're just going to do a little lift. So I'm just going to lift my left knee and press up as if I was going to come into my down dog and then just set it back down. So we're kind of still doing that front to back pulse just a little bit, pressing that heel back as we lift those hips. So adding more of a stretch to the hamstrings as well. One more time like that, and then we're just going to go ahead and switch legs. So when you come back down from that last one, that right knee comes down, left leg goes out long, and we're going to start with that nice, easy front to back. And then let's add that little lift and lower, that little bit of extra intensity. As we press back, those hips press up, the heel presses back, and then coming back down nice and gently. And one more time there. Next time you set down, go ahead and bring that left knee down as well. If your wrists need a moment, if they're feeling a little tender, you can sit back towards the heels, give them a roll or two in each direction. And then whenever you're ready, I'm going to grab a sip of my coffee real quick before I move there. So take your time, but when you're ready, we're going to make our way into our downward facing dog. It is our first inversion of the day and our first big lower body stretch. So I invite you to be gentle with yourself. Take a couple moments, maybe shake the head nice and slow, yes or no. Maybe pedal out those heels, wherever you need to be to kind of get a little bit more comfort in this downward facing dog. I know it's not really a resting pose because it is a challenge, but just kind of settling into it a little bit. And finding that nice, intense lower body stretch, especially if you're pedaling out those heels. My calves are a little bit tight today, so this feels more intense than it usually does. And same as that initial scan of the body that we did at the very beginning of class, I noticed that without any judgment and just as something that I can take to modify my practice a little bit today. Alrighty. Now, I'm going to have us find a brief three-legged dog to hip opener. If your balance is a little off today or if that's something you're not comfortable with, you can keep it here in this down dog, or you can find your child's pose to give those wrists and shoulders a break. You can choose the option that works best for you. But if you're okay with it, we're going to take that right leg up and back into our three-legged dog. That intensifies the stretch a little bit for the left leg, but then to add that hip opener, I'm going to bend my right knee and just open it up slightly towards that top wall. So my hips are open to the right side. So they're open a little bit to you here. And that's just finding that big stretch, that hip flexor stretch. We're going to come down out of that and find that left side. So lengthen that right leg, turn those hips down towards the floor, set it down next to the left. And then same thing on that other side. That left leg is going to press up and back. We're going to bend that left knee and open those hips towards that left wall by sending that knee up towards the ceiling. Go ahead and extend that leg back up. We're going to find one more time on each side before we give those wrists and shoulders a little break. So right leg is going to come up this next time. Bend that right knee, open those hips, find that stretch. Send it back up nice and long, set the right next to the left. Last time, and those wrists and shoulders will get a nice break. We're going into a nice long stretch after this. So left leg, bend the knee, open the hips, one nice deep breath. Lengthen the leg, turn those hips down, set that foot down. And our final three-legged dog on that right side, we're just going to use it for our transition. So press the right leg up, bend the left knee, and we're going to sweep the right leg under to our half pigeon. So that shin is going to aim for right underneath those hips. The top of that left foot is going to meet. We're in our half pigeon. If your hips are a little bit higher, you're a little tighter, that's fine. If you can sink into it a little bit more, that's fabulous. And then you can choose where you'd like your upper body to be. So maybe those palms stay down. Maybe those elbows come down, or maybe that forehead meets the back of those hands. We've got a couple of nice deep breaths in that half pigeon just to kind of release and relax into it. Same as that warm up, as we find those exhales, I want you to really try and release and relax the muscles. One more nice deep breath here. All right, and then we're gonna switch sides. You've got some options for how you'd like to switch sides, just depending on how you're feeling today. I'm gonna take it through my downward facing dog, but if that doesn't feel good for you, you can rock that right hip down to the mat, circle those legs around, bring that left leg in front, and that right leg out long behind. So either way, we're just gonna switch legs, whether you'd like to go through your down dog or just circle it around that way. For my down dog, I'm gonna take it through my three-legged dog and then just switch that same way. But either way, that left shin is gonna meet the mat underneath those hips. Top of that right foot is gonna meet, and then same thing, you can stay up nice and tall. You can sink it down to those elbows, or you can sink that forehead to the backs of those hands. Once you make your way through that transition, you just switch those legs up. Couple nice deep breaths here, releasing and relaxing into this stretch. And one more nice deep breath. Alrighty, so from wherever you are, I'm just gonna bring it back to those palms since I came down a little bit lower. This time I am gonna just go ahead and rock that left hip down to the mat, give myself space for that right leg to circle around. And we're back down on those hips, facing the short edge of that mat. I'm gonna start with just another half fold, a little shorter than our first one, pulling the sole of that left foot towards the inner right thigh. Then we're just gonna fold the forward fingertips down towards those right toes for that nice stretch through that hamstring. Feel a little bit looser now that we did our downward facing dog and that warm up for it. So this feels, for me at least, a little bit different than our warm up one did. Next, inhale, rolls us back up, sits us up nice and tall. We're gonna take this to a spinal twist. So I have my left leg folded in. I'm gonna pull that up and cross it over my right leg. I'm then gonna take my right arm up towards the ceiling, turn my torso towards my left leg, and then just bring my right elbow to the outside of my left knee. Left hand's gonna come around behind the back, and I'm opening up my shoulders towards that opposite wall. I'm just using a little pressure on that knee for a little bit of extra help. If that doesn't feel good, you can always just kind of wrap your arm around the knee or just let it settle wherever it's most comfortable here. And let's find our counter twist. I'm just gonna bring my torso back through center, but if you'd like to lift that left arm and bring it to that opposite side, you can. I'm just gonna bring that elbow over, right arm behind, left arm to the inside of that left knee. And then just go ahead and release that torso back to center. We're gonna take this into our figure four. So to set that up, I'm still gonna keep that ankle crossed over that knee. You can stay here if this is pretty intense for that lower body. You can lean it back onto those hands, bend that knee, and just kind of lean into this if that feels pretty intense. Or for that most intense version, we're gonna nice and gently roll it back onto the mat, pull that right foot up off of the mat, and interlace those hands underneath that right knee, opening the left knee just away from center. So wherever you are, it's kind of like as if we're pressing that hand onto that left knee to open it, but we're not actually putting that physical pressure there. We're just activating the muscles that do that movement. And then let's take this into a spinal twist. So I'm going to release that right foot back down to the mat. I'm going to keep my left ankle crossed over my right knee, but just pull my left knee in towards my center line here. Arms are going to come out into a nice T shape. And then my left ankle is on the outside of my right knee. So I'm going to go down to the right. So both legs come down to the right. And I'm going to go ahead and look over that left shoulder. A nice spinal twist here. Alrighty, from here, we're going to switch sides. So I want you to bring those knees up to center. We're just going to switch legs to that other side spinal twist. So planting that left foot, crossing that right ankle over the left knee, and that knee is in towards our center line. We're going both legs down towards the left this time. And looking over that right shoulder, if that feels okay, to complete that twist up into the neck. Bringing it up to center, we're going to take this into our figure 4. So I'm going to bring my knee away from my center line and then pull my left foot up off of the mat, interlacing my hands underneath my left knee. If it felt better to be seated up nice and tall or with that leg out long, feel free to make the adjustments into that one as well. Fabulous. From here, we're going to go ahead and take it back up to seated for that spinal twist. You can make that transition however works best. Maybe releasing that leg, give it a little rock and roll to come up. Maybe you just roll it up and sit it up nice and tall. Either way, that right ankle is going to be crossed over that left leg. When we get to the top, our left arm is going to reach as we lengthen that spine. We turn towards that right wall, open those right fingertips behind us, and that left elbow to the outside of that right knee. Just for that little bit of extra pressure, that little bit of opening. If that doesn't feel good, feel free to keep it right there. Wrap that arm around if that feels better. And then let's counter twist, switching sides. Right arm to the inside of that right leg, opening those shoulders towards that left wall. And then we're going to go ahead and finish this side with our half fold. So bringing the torso back to center, uncrossing that leg, but bringing the sole of the foot towards that inner left thigh. And then just finding that final fold here, fingertips trace down towards the shin, the ankle, or the toes. And with your next inhale, go ahead and release that. We're going to spend our final couple of minutes before final relaxation with a little bit of low lunge work, so a little bit of hip flexor, quad, and hamstring work. So I'm going to go ahead and meet you guys back over at hands and knees to transition into that final little segment. Same as before, if you need a moment to grab a sip or a range of motion, please feel free to find that as you make that transition. But when you do get there, finding 2 cats and 2 cows, 2 nice deep breaths there. Nice big inhales and exhales. After that, we're going to go ahead and bring that spine back to our nice neutral. We're going to step it into our low lunge with our right leg forward. So I'm just going to walk my hands slightly over to the left, give myself a little space, circle my right leg around. Feel free to use that little assistance with that right hand if you need to. And we're just going to find a nice, slow, easy descent into that low lunge. So just pressing slightly forward, finding that left hip flexor stretch. And if you need to kind of ease into and back out of it, that's totally fabulous. Do what works for you in this stretch. Let's make our way back into a hamstring stretch here. So I'm going to shift my hips backwards towards my left heel, lengthen my right leg, lift my right toes, and just hinge forward at the hips. So kind of same as our half fold, bringing those fingertips either just down towards your sides for a little bit more support, or if you want a little bit deeper of a stretch, I like to bring them out towards my toes. And that's only if you feel pretty good about that balance on that left knee. Go ahead and release that back into our low lunge, bringing those hips back forward, planting those hands inside that right foot. We're going to keep that left hand planted and open that right arm up towards the ceiling for just a little spinal twist in this low lunge. And let's go ahead and bring that down. The more challenging of the two twists, we're going to plant that right hand and try and work on opening that left. So counter twisting that, opening away from that leg, and I certainly can't get quite as far with this one as I can the other. Exhale brings that down. We've got one more stretch here before we switch legs. This is going to be a little bit of a hip opener. So if this doesn't feel good, you can stay right here in this low lunge. But if it feels okay, I'm going to go ahead and place my right hand right inside that knee and just let it kind of fall away from my center line just slightly. So if you've only gotten an inch or two in that range, that's fine. If you've got a little more, that's fine. The inside of my foot is actually coming up off the mat. Again, if this is a painful range of motion, keep it right at center. But if it feels okay, one more nice deep breath. All right, and then bringing that back to our center line, just kind of releasing slightly, and then bringing that right foot back around to meet that left knee. And then we're just going to switch sides, finishing off here. The left leg is going to circle around to the front. We're going to start off just in that nice, easy, low lunge, sinking into it, nice and low. And again, same as with that other side, if you need that little kind of into it and back out of it, you can certainly find that. All right, let's find that hamstring stretch up next. Sending those hips back towards that right heel, lengthening that left leg, lifting those left toes. Fingertips can come down towards your sides for a little more support, or towards the toes for a little more stretch. Finishing off by shifting forward, starting with our spinal twist. Right hand is going to stay down, left arm is going to open. We're opening the body towards that left leg. And then let's switch sides. Left hand plants, right arm opens. Again, a little more challenging of the two, a little less range of motion on this one. Go ahead and bring that one back down. And then our final stretch here before we move into just a couple moments of final relaxation is that press away from that center line. So again, only if this feels okay. Left hand on the inside of that left knee, and we're just kind of letting it fall out to the side, pressing those hips down a little bit. Again, the inside of my left foot comes up off the mat slightly. Just working on that hip flexor mobility, that inside, that groin mobility. All righty, go ahead and bring that back to your center line. Bring that left knee back down to meet the right. And then we're going to make our way towards just a few moments, like I said, of final relaxation. You get to choose where you would like that to be. So if you're someone who very much likes your corpse pose for your final Shavasana, you can make your way on over, down onto your back. If you prefer a different foot positioning, legs up the wall, legs crossed, knees bent, feet planted, or if laying on your back is just not comfortable and you prefer something like a child's pose or a comfortable seated position, you can certainly choose that as well. Just making your way into that pose, that position, finding our scan of the body again, same way that we started today, from the top of the head to the tips of the toes. As you take that scan, noticing how you're feeling once again, and still without any judgment. So just noticing for the sake of your body how you're feeling, where those points of tension maybe still are, maybe some that came about because of this practice, Maybe some that released and are feeling a little bit less tense because of this practice, and some that feel particularly good today. As you complete that scan, finding 3 nice deep breaths, allowing space on the inhale for the expansion of the lungs through the chest, the ribs, and the belly. And on your exhale, just allowing gravity to pull you into a little bit more relaxed of a state in your final resting position. Next, we've got 2 more nice deep breaths with a little tension and release. With your inhale, I want you to travel from the top of the head to the tips of the toes and add tension to the body, flexing the muscles. So squeezing the eyes shut, the muscles in the face, the jaw, pulling the shoulders up towards the ears, maybe squeezing those fingertips into a fist, pulling the core in, squeezing the glutes, the legs, the toes. Big exhale to release and relax all those muscles that you just found tension in. Just one more like that. Inhale finds that tension all the way from the top of the head to the tips of the toes. Nice big squeeze. And then exhale to release and relax. One more nice deep breath. This time, we're going to find length away from center with our inhale. So maybe the arms come up overhead. Maybe if the legs weren't already long, you lengthen. Maybe you just focus on lengthening the spine a little bit more. Big exhale pulls us in towards center. So maybe knees towards the chest, maybe the head lifts. Then we're going to make our way to our comfortable seat. So if you're on your back, you can roll to your favorite side and then press up. If you're somewhere else, just making the transition that makes sense for you back to that comfortable seated position. We're going to finish off with 2 nice deep breaths, leading with those arms. That first one, inhale takes us out and up. Exhale brings us down and around. On the second one, those palms are going to meet right up overhead. Inhale takes us up. Palms meet. Exhale pulls the hands down to heart center. Thank you.